Hello, I'm Jeremy, and we're going to talk about the immigration crisis going on at the border because the Democrats just, especially Joe Biden, he's just one lie after another lie after another lie after another lie. It doesn't stop. So, one of the things that I'm doing is that not only am I going to work on these shows, these word pads on the lies and all this that's going on, I've decided to go ahead and do it with some key people too as they come up. And so with Joe Biden right here, started this with April 8th, and he's already on 4 lies that he's done so far. And this is just on April 8th, so it's just been a few days, and I've not been able to. I'm not going to keep on top of him with every little thing that he does. But he lied about. He said that you cannot yell fire in a crowded theater. And yes, you can. You have free speech. You can absolutely say that. There might be some consequences for that, but you can. And this was a Supreme Court ruling that was decided over 50 years ago. He's the President of the United States. Let's say that he just didn't know. He's surrounded by legal experts, politicians, and the whole like. They know. Yet he said it anyways. He's also saying that he can pass legislation to override the Second Amendment. So to do things like to have stricter gun control or background checks to be stricter or whatever. And it's like, no, you can't. That is what Congress is for. That is what the legislation does. They're the ones who pass bills. They're the ones who are supposed to do that. And all the presidents have actually been doing this more and more. It's like, no, you don't get to do that. Politicians are supposed to be elected officials. And whenever the president does something like this, he's putting in people who are not elected by the people. I believe, from what I understand, that it's completely illegal. And why this is allowed to happen, I have my understandings as to why. I don't know if it's completely accurate, but it's things like corruption, and it's also that it's expensive to be able to take a lawsuit to court, and especially all the way up to the Supreme Court. So who's going to do that? Because you're just basically throwing away money. You're not going to get any of those costs reimbursed to you. But he can't do that. He can't do that at all. And then and there's the link to the video that brings these issues up. I think both these are Tim Pool videos, but I know there's lots more than this. And I know that he's done this already since he's been inaugurated as president. Says that there's no border crisis, yet historical record for children crossings are at an all-time high. And it is absolutely a failure. And he lets in immigrants that have COVID. They don't have masks on. They just let them go into the country. So is COVID okay or is it not? Because you see pictures and there are these people and these kids and they're just crowded in there. Some of them have masks. Some of them have masks on and they're pulled down. Some don't have masks at all. So it's like, is COVID a threat or is it not? Because you're still wanting to lock down the country. He said this on multiple occasions, and that he wants to make mask wearing a mandate across the entire nation. And Texas, where I live, is one of the states that has said, no, we're not doing that, and you can't make us. And fortunately, the governor said, we're not going to abide by that at all. In fact, we're going to, he announced that we're not going to have it at all. So nobody has to do it, unless if they want to. Did that pop up right there? Yeah, so he's at a lie count of 4 right now. It's ridiculous. You would think that not the president, that the president should be accountable in some way with something, because that's just ridiculous. Which one am I doing? Did I do that wrong? Let me pause. So we have a few videos that we're going to go over. We're going to go over this one from Tim Pool, and then one from Thomas Sowell, and those, we're going to go over those two videos, and we're going to go over a little bit of the definition of migrant. So if you are also interested in knowing what the truth is based off of some kind of facts and evidence, well, one of the things that we're going to do is that whenever I get enough people and get subscriptions going, I'm going to have a website where you get to do this as well. So if you know of lies that are going on and you have evidence, then post it. And we're all going to see about it, and we're going to hold these people accountable. And so, yeah, if you're tired of being screwed around by politicians and the news, then, oh, yeah, you're going to like this. Because I can't. How many politicians are there? How many states? How many governors, senators? There's no way I can do it. But I know that there's plenty of people out there who are going to watch, who are going to be like, yep, you know what? I want to too. And I'm not going to say no to anybody. But there are going to be some requirements. You are going to have some kind of proof to be able to back it up. And that's what I'm doing here to some degree. And the bigger we grow, the more we're going to be able to do this. So make sure that you like, subscribe. I have Patreon and Subscribestar as well. And I post on YouTube, Rumble, Bitchute. So there's plenty of places to watch my content, and a little bit on Facebook. So Tim Pool, he's just calling out the lies. He talks about how this is the worst in history. But before we get into that, actually, let's go ahead and dive into the definitions, and then we'll do the videos. I found 3 different definitions of immigration. So with one of them was Wikipedia, one of them was the Webster Dictionary, and I forgot what the other one was. The action of coming to live permanently in a foreign country was one. Another is the act of leaving one's country and moving to another country of which they are not natives or citizens to settle or reside there, especially as permanent residents or naturalized citizens, or to take up employment as a migrant worker or temporarily as a foreign worker. And then the last one is the international movement of people to a designation country of which they are not natives or where they do not possess citizenship in order to settle as permanent residents or naturalized citizens. Well, this is part of the issue. And so if you've watched my other videos, this is something that happens often, is that there is usually no clear definition at all. So an example of this would be, what constitutes a mass shooting? Is it 3, 4, or 5? Because whenever you get into 3, you're getting more into completely different demographics, because there's a lot of gang shootings that happen whenever it's 3. And so the people that are involved, their race, their motives, all that, the kinds of weapons that they're using, it all changes. So it all depends. So it's a whole different video on all that. I'm not going to get into that. But kind of makes it hard to be able to talk about something whenever there's not one clear set definition as to what it is that's going on. It reminded me of this older movie called Hero with Jet Li. And there's a point in the picture where they're at this calligraphy house, and was that it? Yeah. And he's learning how to write sword, and there's like 9 or 8 different translations of sword, and it's because China's divided up into provinces and they all have their own different languages. Right now they are down to 2 national languages, but they all know multiple languages because they all know at least one of the main Chinese languages, and then they also know their sub-region Chinese language as well too. That's part of the problems that they've had with their division, is this inability to be able to communicate with each other. Then we're going to go over some of these facts and some things about what they're saying here. And so now we're going to go ahead and jump into that first video with Tim Pool. And one of the things that he starts off saying is that it costs $60 million a week. That the border crossing with children is at $19K. And if you take that $60 million a week and you multiply that for 52 weeks out of the year, that comes to $3.1 billion. We didn't have this issue with Trump. Trump said, no, you can stay in Mexico. And for many of your cases, we're not going to hear it, because if you're fleeing tyranny from your country, such as Guatemala, well then, congratulations, you did it, because now you're in Mexico. So, settle there. What could we do with $3.1 billion? That's a lot of money. I could do some pretty amazing stuff with $3.1 billion. I mean, absolutely tremendous things. I have big plans. So why is Joe Biden doing this? Why are they lying about this? I have my speculations. None of it's good, but it is all absolutely a lie. And I'm going to change this. I'm going to move that up to a fact, because that is exactly what this is. It is a fact. That is how much it's costing. It's also an occurrence, but it's going to be both. Not only is he lying about this, but so is AOC. AOC was calling them like concentration camps or children in cages or something like that. And then right here, Tim Pool pulls up a chart to show that, yep, this is horrible. This is the blue line. It's the worst that it's ever been. And then there's more lines where they claim that this is something that there's a spike each year whenever it gets warm, and this shows that it's clearly not. I tell you what, Tim Pool does an absolutely great job whenever it comes to politicians and the news lying. It's why I watch him. Whenever it comes to his policy suggestions, he's gotten better on some things with the guns and his views on that. It's gotten a lot better. With the rest of it, he still seems a little inexperienced, but that makes sense. I mean, his main focus has always been news and reporting, so, don't hold that against him. I don't. So if he ever says... If he ever says a lie about something that's not news related, I would consider that an unintentional lie. And I do have to point out that he's made a mistake, because he does say that the population of the world keeps growing and getting larger and larger and larger. That was true, but it's actually slowing down, and it's because more and more countries are telling their people to stop having so many children. There's a big push for this, especially in India and China, where they both have over 1 billion people per country. And they're telling them, yes, it's very hard, it's very expensive, it's very stressful having 10, 11, 12 children. The whole world used to be like this until we came up with contraceptions back in the 60s, starting with the birth control pill, and now we have foam and the morning after pill and shots and all kinds of things that we can take to kind of help with all that stuff. And they're really doing a really hard push for this in those two countries and in Africa. So it looks like it's going to kind of top out at 10 billion people, and then there might actually be a decline, that we might actually go down. Because it looks like that the more developed a nation becomes, their population starts to kind of go in a downfall a little bit. It's kind of like you have an uptick, kind of a boom, because of all this innovation that kind of comes along, and also education. And it's like, oh yeah, having 2 kids would be a lot easier to manage instead of 10 or 12 or whatever, and then it goes back down. So it's like, with my parents, and especially my grandparents, yeah, their families were like 10, 11, 12 strong. And they bumped up really high because we were able to mass produce food at this time. Healthcare got really great at the same time because one of the things that kind of kept the population in check were those two things. So like infant deaths were incredibly high, but thanks to the advent of modern medicine, we're able to stave off those things. So, but he says that part of the reason why this spike has occurred is because that the population has gotten larger, and it's like it hasn't. It hasn't. In fact, they argue for the opposite, that we need to bring more people in because our population is dwindling. Well, this is something that's happening around the world, though. And more so, the rest of the world is catching up to us and other first world countries. And then here with this segment, he's showing where Steve Scalise is at the border, and he's doing this recording, and there are all of these children who are illegally crossing as he's doing this. And it's just crazy that this is going on. And you know what you could do? So here's something that I want you to think about. These children are absolutely, positively, 100% being abused. Maybe not every last one of them, but a lot of them. Absolutely. I don't see how you could be so stupid to not understand that that's happening, that there aren't sexual crimes being committed against them, drugs being shoved into them and transported across the border. I mean, there's plenty of bad things happening to these kids. The problem that politicians like to throw at you is that, well, there's no answer to this. And it's like, yeah, there is. It's just there's not a perfect answer, but there's a better answer. So a better answer would be something like, you could put down a no crossing zone, and the zone could be like 6 feet across, and you could just take it from one end of the coast to the other, but kind of 6 feet deep or however far, and you could put concertina wire on both ends, and in the middle you could put landmines. There would be people who would say, well, the kids would die. They'd get caught in the concertina wire. They'd get blown up by landmines. Yeah, maybe, but wouldn't that be better than having all of these children? Tim Pool has reported several times about how these kids have drowned, how these kids have gotten lost in the desert and they've starved to death and they've dehydrated to death. It's like they're still dying, but the difference would be is that there would be a lot less of them. Like a perfect answer, it's like you're not going to get a perfect answer. You know why? Because so many of these people are stupid. Those kids are stupid. There's stupidity all over the place. You shouldn't be asking for perfect. You should be asking, well, what can we do to make things better? And then you keep asking that. It's like just because you have a solution, that doesn't mean that that's good enough and that you should stop. Keep it up. Why stop? But in the meantime, do something. So what do you think? Do you think something like that would be better? So then there would be less children put in harm's way, less children dying? I mean, because it's like this stuff is going on every single day. Here's a video of Steve Scalise showing it right now. How children crossing whenever there's landmines and concertina wire, it's like good luck. That's not hardly ever going to happen. That's going to be extremely rare to this. What do you think? Let me know in the comments section below. And by the way, I do have links in the description below so you can watch all of this yourself. So I like this little part right here. Tim is going over some of this stuff and he's like, no, it's not, you liar. I'm going to play this little bit here.
Solitary year. I've pointed this out before, and I'm not interested in repeating the psychotic lies of this ineffective, pathetic president. I mean, look at these border spikes. It happens every year. No, it doesn't. Here's the year-by-year data, you liar.
I love it. I tell you what. I want my site to be able to help out people like Tim Pool. That's exactly what it's going to do, because it's going to show all this information. And then people are still going to have to report on it. People are going to have to bring this to the forefront. Oh, I tell you what, I can't wait, because it's just going to, just elbowing them all just down to the ground. Get out of the way. It's going to be good. I can't wait. I'm so tired of being lied to. I had two clear thoughts, and the two of them, especially together, I guess you could say I look at things a lot differently now, and it's kind of led to one thing to the next, to the next, to the next. So I guess you could call it kind of an epiphany. Sneeze. I'm going to talk one last point, and that they're saying it's because of COVID. That the COVID restrictions are lifting up. And he says, shut your mouth. And it's because these other countries didn't have it. Part of it is because they can't enforce it, because they're too poor. They can't do this stuff, even if they wanted to. It's like they just can't. So COVID wasn't stopping them. They all have these same little stupid little blue mats that do nothing, because it's what's handed to them when they cross over. I mean, yeah, I think a few of them do, but most of them, it's like, hell no. I wouldn't be surprised if many of them didn't even know what the hell was going on. Because, they come from poverty-stricken country areas. So, I guess still, it would only take one person to know and spread it around. But I bet many of them probably aren't aware as to how severe the rest of the world has gone with this stuff. So, well, I don't know. I guess same argument is that, well, it would only take one person to hear about this stuff and then tell everyone else. So, but I'm all for it with Temple. Now we're going to talk a little bit on kind of the facts and kind of what this means historically, and from the eyes of an economist. I think it's good to take in multiple sources with this, with all of these things. So I could absolutely be getting this stuff wrong. I am not saying this stuff to change your mind one way or the other. I'm just here trying to show you that there are lies, 100%. The data is in on this. It's just people are just ignoring it. And so Thomas Sowell here, yeah. At the beginning, they have a little bit of music, and I don't like it. I don't like it whenever they try to play into your feelings and your emotions. And so the music that they have at the beginning, I think, is ridiculous. I understand why they do it, but I think it's not a very professional way of going about it. But if you've got the right views and you're being honest, then you shouldn't have to be overly hyped. I mean, getting worked up over it's kind of one thing in the spur of the moment, but planning it out ahead of time, like, yeah, we're going to have this sappy music. But he does make an argument that skilled workers are one thing, but unskilled workers are another. It's like, yeah. So, for example, if at one point in time, German piano makers came over. They weren't here. They dominated the industry. But it wasn't because they came over and took it over. It's because they came over and they created it. Yes, if there are people where we need more jobs created in an industry, or if we have no jobs created in that industry, yeah, bring more jobs. That's great. We want to have, so I've said this before, but we want to have like 1,000 jobs and like 10 people who qualify for that job. Because then they're going to argue and fight about getting these 10 employees. Hey, we're expanding, we're moving to a larger location, I'll pay for another person, how's, starting off at minimum wage. And someone else will be like, no, we're looking to open up a whole new branch somewhere. I'll pay you $18 an hour. Oh, look, man, we're opening up a couple of places outside of the city into 2 different cities. We're branching out. We're going to pay you $20 an hour, and we're going to give you a 401k. Man, we're looking to go into different states. We're looking to go to different countries and more and more and more. So they're really fighting hard. Yeah, I'll give you medical, vision, dental, and paid time off. The whole kit and caboodle. The other way around, you have 1,000 workers and like 100 jobs. Oh, I was doing really good. I just moved and I was making $24 an hour. Hey man, I need this job. I'll work for $20 an hour. I'm really hurting. I will work for minimum wage. I'm about to lose my house. I'm an illegal immigrant. I can't call the authorities if you pay me less than minimum wage. You can lie about it on the books, but you don't have to actually pay it, and you get to put that money in your own pocket, which is exactly what happened. I've given a story about that. And so this is one of the things that the definition talks about wrongly. So right before we get into this with Thomas Sowell, this Wikipedia has got problems. But first, let's go ahead and go into a little bit of what they have written here. It reads, as for economic effects, research suggests that immigration is beneficial to both the receiving and sending countries. That makes no sense whatsoever. If they have skills and they're good at it, then why would them leaving their country, taking their skills with them, benefit them? If you're talking about that on an economic level, then that is an absolute lie. That is a contradiction if I have ever seen one. How can it be both ways? It's not. Research, with few exceptions. Oh, really? Yeah. Says you. Where's your proof? Because I tell you what, the problem is that these things, they will go to studies that are illegitimate because the studies are geared towards what the politicians want to hear instead of the truth because they're looking for votes. But it finds that immigration on average has positive economic effects on the native population, but is mixed to whether low-skilled immigration adversely affects low-skilled natives. And it's like, okay, so you do have to read the whole thing. So they are even saying here that legal immigration, so they're missing a word, legal immigration might do well to affect the country positively that it's leaving. But this does mean that it would be a negative effect for the country that they're leaving because they're not going to have their skills anymore. And then with low-skilled workers, it's like, well, yes, because it can happen to any area. You could have it with doctors, you could have it with engineers, you could have it with whatever. There comes a point in time whenever you've just saturated the market and you don't need any more. And the easiest place to do that is with unskilled workers because they have no skills whatsoever. And you are literally taking the jobs out of Americans who maybe they don't want to be that materialistic. Maybe they don't want to work long hours. Maybe they're happy where they are and they get more enjoyment out of being with friends and family. That should be their choice. And having that as an option because we put a control on immigration is completely reasonable. If you really want to help these people out, then you have to dig deeper into all this and find out what's going on with their countries as to why they want to leave in the first place. Why can't they be just as successful as we are here in the U.S.? I think that would be a good thing. One of the things that they talk about is China becoming more of an economic powerhouse, and so what would that mean versus us and them economically and militarily because they have such a large population? Well, you know what? If the rest of the world too were economically strong and had some kind of military power that we could all unite if we really wanted to. I mean, it's one of the good things that we have going on right now is that we still do kind of have three superpowers: America, China, and Russia. So then that way, if China does decide to do anything, well, there's Russia right there, and they're not going to be very happy with China expanding and doing all this kind of crazy stuff, and neither is the rest of the world either. So, anyways, to continue, studies have shown that the elimination of barriers to migration would have profound effects on world GDP. Oh my goodness, here we go. With estimates of gains ranging between 67 and 147%. Lies. Well, I take this back. This is a straw man, and this is where they are trying to deflect. Because the real thing is that if it does good for these people to leave, what about the people who are still trapped there? Wouldn't it be better to just raise that whole country out of the poverty-stricken ways that they're accustomed to? That they should make changes so they can elevate themselves? What would that be if the whole country became productive instead of these few who fled? That's a much better question to ask. Development economists argue that reducing barriers to labor mobility between developing countries and developed countries would be one of the most effective tools of poverty reduction. That is a outright lie, because it's a twist. If they're sitting around and they're not doing anything productive in their country and they come here, they're not going to do anything productive here either. They will get out of poverty because of welfare, because they'll get HUD, they'll get food stamps, they will get all this stuff. And so yes, technically they will be out of poverty. But just because they came over to the U.S., that doesn't mean that now they are smart or educated, their IQ has gone up, that they understand our culture, our language, the way that our economy works, our government works. None of that has happened. That takes effort. But they can cross that border and they can still get those benefits, and that requires no effort whatsoever. It's like it's a system of enabling instead of a system of productivity, which we can do. I know exactly one of the things that we could do, a very good thing that we could do. The academic developing positive net migration can soften the demographic. Oh, what another lie. What another lie. So I'm just going to finish up this paragraph. I'm not going to move into this other one. Positive net immigration can soften the demographic dilemma of in the aging global north. Screw you, dude. So whoever the hell wrote this and put this trash up. It's like, are you trying to tell me that we are so stupid that we can't figure that out? I have a solution for that. You can offer people more money to come and work and help at nursing homes. What the hell are you talking about? More people can volunteer. So what the hell are you talking about? There's solutions. If you really wanted to go a corrupt way, you could introduce more government policies and programs. What do you mean? It's like, do not talk down to us like we're a bunch of morons who can't figure out something like that. I mean, if anything, if it really came down to it, many of these people still have family members, such as their children, who they could go live with. You know what? This is something that you need to take note of, is that if you don't want to be stuck in a retirement home, you should better think twice about the way that you're treating your children. Because at some point in time, they're going to grow up, they're not going to be stupid anymore, and they're going to be fed up with any kind of crap you threw their way. So you better watch yourself, because they don't stay young and dumb forever. So now we'll move on to the last video. That's why I was thinking 3 videos. It was because I forgot all this stuff with immigration. I meant to do this video yesterday, but I got called up on some stuff and had to go take care of some real world issues. And so Thomas Sowell is talking about this too. He's talking about, yeah, you know what, whenever they've got skills and they come on over, they can do amazing things. And he also talks about that the problems that are going on with these other countries are the cultural problems that they have. And he gives an example of an Indian father that's trying to bring his son back over there to India, and the son said no. Because over there in India, it's all about who you know instead of what you know. Over there, if he wasn't in the right crowd, then he would be stagnant. He wouldn't be able to advance anymore. But over here in the U.S., it's based off of his abilities. So if he really knows what he's doing and he works hard and he's educated and all this stuff, then he can really progress to the means that he's capable of producing. It's like, yeah, so then why don't other countries do this? Why don't we talk to these other countries and say, this is what we do. Why not give it a try and see what happens? We are extremely economically powerful, and we see the same thing with North and South Korea, Japan. They have a pretty free system over there, in Germany, and they lost after the war, and they do extremely well. So why don't we do that? Why don't we do that more? And then a little into the video, he talks about how whenever you have these well-trained immigrant workers who come on over, that you can really have some good things going on. The Russians and the Americans both took German scientists and were able to make the American space program and the Russian space program. But that's something that nobody, I don't care, left or right, Republican or Democrat, they don't ever talk about this. They don't ever talk about how you don't take people who don't have anything into the country because they have nothing to offer. You want to take in people who do have something. And then you want to be able to make that as big and as grand as you possibly can. The way that you would have to take in unskilled labor is that you would have to first then make them educated or skilled in something so that they could be beneficial. And maybe that would be something that we could do. Maybe we could offer educations for all of these people, but then also maybe send them back so they could do it. But you couldn't do that because you would have to change the government. But it would be interesting, though. What if you did take a country that was extremely in shambles, such as Venezuela, and you just said, you know what, how about you just all come over here, we'll educate you, and y'all can come here and come here and come here until what? Until nobody's left over there? Because they have to have somebody who's doing all these little chores all over the place that's keeping the country together. I mean, every country has it, so if they were to lose all of these working people, then what? It'd be kind of interesting to see what kind of a situation would unfold under those kind of circumstances. Then about halfway in the video, there's a discussion about shouldn't we just open our borders and kind of welcome in Mexico and Mexicans and just kind of let them do whatever. And Thomas Sowell just point blank, just flat out says no. He said if you were to just open up the borders and just let these people come in without just willy-nilly, just anyone, anywhere, anytime, that you would not have the same country that we have now. And it wouldn't make, it would no longer be the country that people would want to go to anymore. Because they would bring all of their traditions and customs and their way of living, and without any kind of assimilation, then the country would no longer be the country of the U.S. or whichever country that you're talking about. It's like, well, yeah, absolutely. And before this, he did talk about how there were like Jews and Germans that so many of them came in that they didn't learn how to speak English. I mean, their children and grandchildren did because they went through the school system and they learned. But the first generation immigrants that came on in, they didn't have to. Whenever there was enough of them so that they could form their own community within the U.S. There's like a town actually that's pretty close to where I live, and the whole town was German. And they spoke German, and they're just heavily German. I don't know exactly when it was, but everybody has known that forever. And they have that going on in larger cities, so like Chinatown. You had that in New York and LA and all that stuff, a little Chinatown area, and same thing with the Jews and the Germans and all that. They all have their little subdivision things. And is it a good thing or bad thing? Whenever they're bringing their skills, yes, but whenever they're bringing their bad customs and traditions, then that's a bad thing. When they're bringing their good customs and traditions, it's a good thing. And so what's the truth? The truth is that they have both. They have some things that they're doing that are good and some things that they have that they're doing that are bad. I would like to have that all set up so we could see what really the best ones are and why. And I don't see why we couldn't do it at all, because there are people like Thomas Sowell where he's actually done stuff like this before. So I don't know if he's quite put it out quite that directly. I'm sure he has in snippets where he's been very direct about it, but I don't think he's like done a book directly about that. Maybe he has. He's done quite a few books. But anyways, this is going to be a good place to stop. I'm pretty far into the video. It's really late right now, but I just had to get a video out because I am not stopping for anything. Like and subscribe and join and be a member, because that really helps with the algorithm. Share the link too with other people and ask them what they think about it. Get them involved in the discussion. And yeah, Thanks a lot for watching, and we'll catch you again later. Bye.